morning. So I hope it's that way wherever you are tuning in. And I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that wherever you're tuning in today, we all are on traditional Indigenous land here in Toronto. We're in the Treaty 13 lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, the Between the Lakes Purchase, and just really reaffirm the Green Party's commitment to the truth and reconciliation process. And also just want to take a moment to express my gratitude for all that I've learned from Indigenous people about being stewards and protectors of this land and water and all the creatures who inhabit this earth with us. The past year has been an incredibly challenging year for everyone in Ontario and around the world. Obviously, the COVID pandemic has upended and certainly changed all of our lives. And I want to take a moment before discussing the Green Party's budget priorities just to offer a heartfelt thank you to all frontline workers, especially healthcare workers who, whether you're in a long-term care home or providing home care services, working in a hospital, doctor's office, vaccination clinic, testing clinic, you've really been on the front lines. And I know so many of you are overworked and underpaid and exhausted right now. But also take a moment to, just thank the people who have stocked our store shelves, taught our children, cared for our loved ones, really helped kept our society running through this pandemic. And it's one of the reasons that the Green Party's number one budget priority in this week's budget is for the government to deliver a safe workplace plan. We've seen, and I think most pronounced with the closure of the Amazon warehouse in Brampton, we've seen a number of outbreaks in vulnerable workplaces where essential workers who have to go into work to get the job done go. And we need a plan that provides paid sick days for essential workers. For all workers, we need a plan that provides paid time off for people to get vaccinated. We're hearing reports, even in the healthcare sector, of some people, frontline workers, not getting vaccinated because they can't afford to take time off from work to get vaccinated. We need to ensure there's proper PPE, proper inspections with enforcement, a whole host of issues, making sure that we have a comprehensive plan that addresses making sure our workplaces are safe. And that benefits everybody in Ontario. Secondly, I just think given the tragedy we've seen in our long-term care homes, is just to make sure that we provide the funding needed to ensure a minimum of 4 hours of care every day for our loved ones in long-term care, to ensure that we have enough staff in place, so we have proper ratios in place, so we have hired enough nurses, to make sure that we have a permanent pay increase for people who work in long-term care, especially personal support workers, and to ensure that they have full-time jobs with benefits. If we want the people who care for our loved ones, if we're going to call them heroes, we have to treat them like heroes. And the last budget the government brought down promised a minimum standard of 4 hours of care, but then didn't deliver the money for it. And this week's budget has to deliver the money. Third is just to ensure that we make the investments necessary so that everyone has an affordable place to call home. We had a housing affordability crisis prior to the pandemic, and the pandemic has only highlighted that even more. The number of tent cities we've seen popping up in cities large and small. The fact that when you're told to stay home to meet public health guidelines and you don't have a home to stay in is just wrong. And so governments have really, over the last 20 years, retreated from investments in housing. The federal government is starting to get back into the housing game, and we need the province to step up as well. And in particular, we need the province to deliver permanent supportive housing and ensuring that we have wraparound supports for the most vulnerable in our society. Our fourth priority is just to ensure that all those hard-hit businesses get the support they need. The Ontario Business Support Grant was something that the Green Party had been advocating for a long time for direct financial support for small businesses. That program needs to be extended so that businesses can apply more than once, especially for those businesses in sectors who have been locked down and in areas that have faced extended lockdowns. One, small businesses obviously contribute a lot of employment and jobs and economic prosperity for our communities, but oftentimes they're the heart and soul of our neighborhoods, and the vibrancy of our neighborhoods come from a lot of those small businesses, and we want to make sure that they survive the pandemic. Our fifth priority is to ensure that we have proper funding for mental health services. This pandemic has been hard on everyone, and we're seeing increasing demand for mental health services. We already had wait times that were far too long to access affordable mental health services. In the case of youth mental health, wait times as long as 18 months for young people in crisis are just unacceptable. That demand is going up. And at the very least, the province, this government needs to even just deliver on their promise. They promised $3.8 billion over 10 years, which is $380 million a year, which is far below the four-year, $4 billion promise the Green Party advocated for in the last election and continue to advocate for. And we'll continue to push the government for that. But at the very least, they need to even just fulfill their own commitment because people need access to mental health services, because we know mental health is health and it needs to be funded that way. And finally, our final priority is to begin looking ahead to what the post-pandemic recovery is going to look like. And the Green Party is pushing hard for a green and caring recovery for Ontario. And one of the ways to kickstart that is a massive green building campaign. When I was on the Economic Recovery Committee, and we heard from hundreds of Ontarians last summer about what supports they needed to, one, keep their businesses, keep our economy, keep their nonprofit and other organizations alive. But what would it look like to have a recovery, and what were the kinds of investments governments could make to incentivize that recovery? And over again, people talked about having a renovation tax credit, home retrofit program to help people retrofit their homes to save energy, which will then help them save money and also reduce climate pollution, increase comfort in their home, create thousands of jobs in the construction and trade sectors. A lot of people talked about the need for retraining programs, particularly targeting Black, Indigenous, people of color Ontarians, so they can participate in the trades and be a part of a building boom that's all about retrofitting homes for homeowners, for tenants, for small businesses, public institutions, making them more energy efficient, addressing the climate crisis, which we're still confronting. The pandemic hasn't taken that crisis off the table. As a matter of fact, the climate crisis is only accelerating, which we've been witnessing in the extreme weather events happening across Canada and around the world. And a green building program really is a great first start to economic recovery, to addressing the climate crisis and helping create jobs that help people save money by saving energy. I'm going to continue to be pushing and working hard to bring these priorities forward. I'm going to be continuing to oppose some of the most destructive things the government is doing, such as their reckless plan to use an MZO to pave over the Duffin Creek wetlands for an Amazon warehouse, which fortunately Amazon has backed out of. I'll be opposing wasting money on things like the Highway 413, which will pave over 2,000 acres of prime farmland, 400 acres of the Greenbelt. That money would be much better spent on the 6 priorities the Green Party's outlined as our priorities for the budget. And I just want to close by just saying thank you to the thousands of Ontarians who have been speaking up for a greener and more caring Ontario, who have been speaking out against the government's reckless approach to economic recovery by bringing forward legislation that guts conservation authorities' ability to protect our drinking water and protect us from flooding, that pave over wetlands for an Amazon warehouse in the case of the Duffin Creek wetland, to fast track environmental assessment for the Highway 413, and so many other destructive policies that this government is bringing forward. We have a real choice of what kind of Ontario we want for generations to come. Is it going to be the Premier's reckless, irresponsible, and destructive path that paves over the places we love and puts the people we care about at risk? Or will it be the Green Party's approach, which is to protect the places we love and to invest in people, in making our communities more caring, more inclusive, ensuring that the public services are in place to care for people, and to make sure that the small businesses that add to the vibrancy and livability of our communities will survive this pandemic. So I want to thank everyone who's speaking out on these issues. You certainly have a voice in Mike Schreiner and the Green Party of Ontario. Thank you.